Welcome to the show. Fáilte chuig on show. That was the Sunday game theme song. Bin Áran, the Sunday game, and that is what everybody, or I presume most people, will be listening to this Sunday. Sin an Táran a bhés an chuideas mó sa ghaoine ag éiste leis an deireadh seachtaina seo when Mayo line out against Kerry. Nar haon Mayo amach in Kerry for the biggest game of the year. An cluiche is mó Imlína agus gach blin, that is the All-Ireland final cluiche ceannis na hÉireann. And you're very welcome to the All-Ireland final special here on Gaeilge Weekly. Fáilte Ródhuig EAGRÁN speisialta don cluiche ceannis anseo Gaeilge Weekly. I'm recording this on Monday the 20th of July. Tá mbeidh taifeadú an Fúchal Lá mí Úl de Lún, and straight after a very big day of sport, Dúireach tar éis lá on war modulation on sport. I don't know, can I ever remember a day where there was as many big sporting events on Níl Sam an féidirlum cuimhnú lá éigean eile inará an méid sin imeachtaí mór a madra leis an sport siúl. Of course, the World Cup final in between Spain and Argentina are no cluiche ceannis on down idir on Spain agus Argentina, and plenty of excitement and plenty of people celebrating here. And neart excitement agus neart daoine célóra na sráidsanna an so. But as well as that, come sin, of course, there was another All-Ireland final, the hurling, and bhí cluiche ceannis eile san na Mánaíocht, and my county, Galway, playing, although it's always a bit weird when Galway are in the hurling final. Ag only been said beagnaí náisteach nervin Gailge sa cluiche ceannis san na Mánaíocht, because of course extremely grateful that I get to watch my county in an All-Ireland final. To my fear bhuaich gur féidirlam a bheith féchant mo chun na hain ag cluiche ceannis na hÉireann. And I was thinking about that waking up or kind of walking down to where I watched it yesterday. Bhí mé smaoineamh faoi sin maidin né agus mise ag siúl chuig an áit in around ag féchant an cluiche, and thinking the amount of people, and I don't want to be condescending here about different counties, so I won't name counties, an méid sin chunnaithe, the amount of counties around the country that their supporters will never see their team in a football final or a hurling final, or maybe don't even have a hurling team. Let's say some of the counties up in Ulster would play very little of it. You know, Nearts and the Chunnaithe Hús in Uga Ola mar hampla, agus Comala Shin, Roscommon, Mayo, Watna, Gasula Shin wouldn't really have any hurling team or be playing in the hurling All Ireland, and some counties won't ever see their team play in football or hurling or camogie. Finds very grateful for that on the bhuaich sin, but because I'm from West Galway, I'm from kind of in between Connemara and Galway City, mar ealgras iarthair na Gaillimhe mé haon agus sais idir Cartan na Gaillimhe agus Connemara. I've never really seen someone who plays hurling for Galway around town or on my side of town, because they're all from East Galway, so that's Orthan na Gaillimhe Eid, and that's really where all the players come from, or all the players who played for Galway over the last 20, 30 years. The vast majority of them would be from at least an hour away from where I'm from, Harter, Bidser, or Chlig, Wemsha, agus an áit a bheas mé hain. So I've always had that bigger connection to the football. I'm going out on Nasca one níos mó agams leis an Bell Gaeilge, but still, of course, wanted to see Galway win yesterday. Arno even mé géirí go make an Gaillimh in an bua a all inné in I limni wasn't to be. In the end, near Harla sé sa deireadh, as things go and as these finals often go, mar haon na cluiche ceannis seo go minic. And ultimately that sport, sin an sport, that I guess that was the result that most people were expecting a bit on thura around an chuideas mó sa ghaoine ag súil leis. So that's the way it was. But today I wanted to focus in on the football final this week. Firstly, say how lucky we are on tá dearg atá oireann to have something like the GA in Ireland and Cumann Lucas Gael of Agin in Éireann. I think a lot of people like me, you know, as I was growing up, I always played Gaelic football. We made Gimmert Pellequailloch, and you know, would tune in to some of the games then when they were on, whether it be All Ireland semi-final, finals, whatever. But wasn't fully grateful for how special it is and how unique it is. Gur sport agus Cumann le atá ann. It's a very unique kind of club, or not club, but association and setup in general. There's nowhere else, and it's only maybe, and I think a lot of people listening to this podcast who live abroad, Lantini ag éisteach leis an bud chréile seo ó bhfuil beidir ina gcónaí in áit na dheofrúla timpeall an Domhain agus thar lear. You guys might realise as well, chance go bhfuil sé tucha faoi deara agah se chomh maith, that when you go abroad you realise, wow, the G is such a unique thing that we kind of take for granted. Is rud có aisteach agus difriúil agus rud le atá ann agus orintha gin muid talamh slán sin, we take it for granted. Even small stuff like trying to explain to people, let's say in Spain, the idea that you can't buy tickets for the final. Ní féidir le ticketí a cheannach don chluiche cheannis. They don't go on sale on Ticketmaster or anything like that. It's just, you need to know someone or get it through your club or whatever. Like, even that is so unique. And then the fact that these lads, I'm going to talk about over the next while, the lads jo, a bheits Misheg Lauertfu, who are fra Tamil, and they're going to be back in work on probably not Monday, let's be honest. Chance Monday might see the rash go over Aaron Loon, but on Tuesday or Wednesday, again, maybe the team who wins might have a few more days celebrating chance on Aaron. I'm an bua by cúpla ela acu ag Célóra, but the colour of All Ireland final, and I know they're clichés, tá sam gur clichés atá untu, but clichés are clichés for a reason. It's clichés iad agus tá fá le sin because they're true and because they're important. And the colour of All Ireland final, and da a bhín le feicáil lá an chluiche cheannis. That's something extremely special and something we should be very grateful for. It mixed, not having segregated supporters. Níl say, mar hampla, Larfall agus Manchan Ainty, Liverpool and Man U, and separated and a million stewards in between them to make sure they don't fight. Agus na mílte stewards, idser an dá grúpa, idser an dá lucht lanúna in between the two supporters. Huntéanú cínte nach maisidig tridge. Everybody's mixed, and I think a lot of stuff that we think is just so normal. Obviously, if you've grown up in Ireland and you live in Ireland, mas as éireann hu agus mas rud é gur dást hu a níos in éireann, it's, you do take for granted. I don't mean that in a negative way. It's just same thing with anything you have while you're growing up. You don't really think about it, ní bhíonn tú ag smaoinmh faoi, but it's only sometimes when you step away and you see it from the outside. Nuair a thógann tú beidir céim siar agus tá tú ag féchan séir ó híomh mu, you kind of realise, wow, it is something so special, co-specialta, and something we should protect and something we should cherish. Rud éigean ba cheartú na bheith an a buíochas. And again, like, maybe other traditional stuff over the last 100, 200 years, such as the language or religion or whatever, has faded away. Rudí cosúil leis an teanga, rudí cosúil leis an Rolly Coon, but something traditional and a part of our heritage, our náireacht and our culture, our cultúr, is stronger than ever. I can't ever remember, certainly with the football, maybe not so much for the hurling and Peter Neal made sin leis an amáníocht at the moment, which is just like goes, it's all cyclical, saying the ruddy seo i gcircailí. They kind of go around to little cycles or circles, but at the moment I can't ever remember the Gaelic football being as popular and as big as it is now. Cúig of mór satá an pell Gaelach nó an cadsa mar a deireann siad i Grí, that's the word they have for it down in Munster. I can't ever remember it being as big or as followed, and you have so many different podcasts about it, so many different the YouTube shows or YouTube series and interviews, and the fact that we obsess over this and we have so much different content and chat to different people down the bar, down the shop or whatever, all about this thing that's ours. We're not talking about the NFL or something that's happening in the Premier League. Maybe it's a kind of in NFL, no, on a Reen Premier is asking. We're talking about our own thing. I think that's really cool, and something again we forget in Ireland. Rudégan or into Ian and Muds Zarma there in Erin. Anyway, this weekend, Mayo versus Kerry. On Deir Shotton saw Mayo in I Chiri. Mayo's route to the final on Slí a Hóg Mayo, no, a Rower who a Hógal, Huig an Chluiche Cheannis, was away to London in Ruislip, which is always a great tradition in Connacht tradition Iontach Daoin i Connacht. By the way, for those who don't know, I'm from Galway, so a mixed relationship with Mayo, which I'll go on to talk about later. So Gael no Heids for Bugan, yeah, Maskiha le Mayo. I'm certainly hoping they win this weekend. Like a lot of people, I think Tá Misheg Súl Gomor Gomuhi Sheed on Deir Shotton a Shug Súla Landini. Cap nothing against Kerry, of course, Nil Tada Agam Igunya Chiri Arnoe. But after that game against London, and remember London and New York, London Agus New Arrock, they play in the Connacht Championship, being Sheeds and Egimerts Igrave Honachta. After the London game in Ruislip, which I always think is funny, that they played the Gaelic football in Boris Johnson's constituency, or his former constituency. Dál cheantar Boris Johnson, no not in a row session, mar cheachta dála no MP in London. But after that, there was Roscommon, which didn't go too well for them. Near Harlesay Rowa, and a surprise victory for Roscommon. They were very much the forgotten team of the championship this year. It's into Dermot or Roscommon, how brilliant they were in provincials, and then after 2 games, because the new format, Gaeilge format, the brilliant new format in my opinion, their lumsa format intach atá ann, they're all of a sudden out. There's so much jeopardy now, you really can't afford to be put in the back foot or take your eye off the ball. Agus the level a Ishlu to kind of drop your level or fa few tira shot to them on, otherwise you could really be up against it. And Mayo were up against it because they had to go way up to Clones to play Monaghan. Now Monaghan hun Immerts I Clones, and managed to get a very impressive victory there. I think just by 1 or maybe 2 points. The points no call points said Gerard. They then played Tyrone, Dimmersheed in Tyrone, Vuisheed, Aishin, and of course you win the 2 games and now you're through to the quarter final. Buan 2, no fine 2 and Bua, so da chlihe agus inia shin, ta 2, so chlihi Yahru Yanish. They played Cork, so they have had an easier run. They haven't had to play, for example, the likes of Kerry or Donegal or Armagh or even Galway on the way here. Ní raibh who very tonight or the Waka, no Tír Hunnell, no Hiri, Iad Hain, no Gailge Marhampla, an Slí an Seo. It was Cork in the quarterfinals and then Louth in the semis. They avoided Dublin and Kerry in the semis. Chiachan seed Blog Clia agus Kerry, Stan Cluhi La Chianish, and Colby McDonald has really been the star for Mayo this year at I think only 18 years of age, Nilchach Uchteg, and he's heading off to Australia to play in the AFL or to play with some AFL team over there by say Dul Whig. An Austral, no ag dul na Austral hon Emirates lahi furin hall on shin AFL. Hopefully at some point in the future, the Kunseg point again Satauki he'll be back in Ireland's playing because goodness watching him this year so exciting. Agus on sketsami and ag bunch lev ag fechant here, and when he gets on the ball the game feels alive. Nerthon Lear Zega Mohian Gockrad Bio, and that he could really turn 2 players, put it over the bar, go for a goal. Haran Trasnon, no cool all, and it is a disappointment that he's heading off, but equally can't blame him. What a brilliant experience to have, and a brilliant life experience to have. Aspers doch redsa of ad ag uchteg no nijeg to go halfway across the world and to play a new sport and to get paid to do it on sport nua e Emirates agus ave ag fall piece arrogance kovmags ag tilla arrogance. Much better experience than just playing with Mayo for the next year or 2 and studying over in GMIT or NUIG in Galway or whatever it might be. Nothing against that. Thought when you simple, you have to take these opportunities if you get them. They may never come around again. Cahitu na chance na sha a hógal matá an chance ad mar chance nach vaishid ad rish in a hill. Of course, Mayo this weekend will be yet again trying to eliminate the curse on Malacht. And for those of you who don't know, the last time Mayo won an All-Ireland football finals in 1951 on Oirearnach a Vui Cunniweo a Glihi Ganesh na Heron Vishay in Needzeg Quega Hain. And there's a lot of different rumours. I feel like I'm doing one of the history podcasts now. Like last week, the my mohu gwil me Jano Chians in the Hagrani Shin of winning Lesh on Star Casulesh on Tacht and Scotch. And I hope you guys enjoyed the Lord Haha episode. A lot of work went into the preparation of that Horme Alon. Ibris Jach San Ulvacon done EAGRÁN Shin. So check that out if you haven't already. Say sheer August Aish Shin. Mono will say clutch to add Hana Fain. But the story goes, and again, a lot of different accounts, and it's probably been made a lot bigger than it actually was. Chance ma go will say Zainta Awadnis Mo na Marvishaganam, but that after winning, they were going through, I think it was Foxford, well, a lot of places in Mayo, but Foxford, Vishidig Dultry, Nyar thoughts, and Iguneweo, Vishidig Dultry, Foxford, and there's a funeral at a church, Evi Suckreds Shul, Tivamwe, it's an Anglish, or Tivsje, it's an Anglish, Achvidini, August Vian Sargat, Tivamwe, it's an Anglish, and that the Mayo players didn't show sufficient respect, and they didn't, slow down or quieten down while they were passing the funeral. Near Haspawn seed Bedra on mass mar chordómh a haspáint agus beidir fós bhí siad ag céileora beagnaí na numarchagus an sucreds siúl díreach in Acalo while the funeral was on right beside them, and the priest came out and said, as long as any member of this team is alive, Kiko Fada is atá ein imror an Uran sub bio Mayo will not win another All-Ireland again. Neil Mayo hun crave a vuchint arish. And what's happened since then? Throughout the decades, treats na blinta, they've reached 11 different finals. Ricksheed Aaron Glehi Canish, Heen Zegor, and they still have not won a single one. Agus fós Neil Cian Bi Bootsa Aku. Unbelievable, Duchredza. The last player from, I think, the starting team, or those who were involved and actually played on the day, an lad Zernach no an Timor Zernach hun boss all on Erin Shin died in 2021, Forsha boss at Gaeilge Weekly. But then there was, an unused sub, I suppose, on the day, Erin Law, a churu a malacht that the curse was placed on the team. The priest probably didn't specify whether unused subs counted within his curses dócha, nor dúirt say, tá unused subs agus na honnaidí seo, nor úsáid sú iad tá siad sin mar chuid den bhallacht seo. Those guys are part of this curse. So 2023 was when the last unused sub died, and when, there was definitely no one left agus ní raibh aon den a fáca in sin. I was thinking it must have been tough when you're these last few guys who were left watching Mayo play in so many finals against Dublin over the last few years. Agus a mates in Cluiche Canish in I bloch Lia, le den o cúig blin a Jeganús, and last one or two, and you're thinking, geez, I hope they win. Those people are going to be wishing that I pass away by the Sul go me boss. But it is the first final that Mayo will have played since the last death. Obviously, all this curse stuff is nonsense. Shaffold's down, but it will go down to them. Whether you like the chat about the curse or not, it's come on hat níon on sort kind shin lat. I know a lot of people actually don't like kind of it being brought up or mentioned and think it's kind of it shouldn't really be talked about as much. Ní cheart a chuí ní lauert faoi on made shin. But if Mayo do win this weekend, after losing 11 while those players were alive, Thresh, Cluiche, Cheanish, Awan, Zaig, a Highlands, agus na lads shin bio, to then go and win the first one after the final death, hun on Chéad Cheanella a Vuchins, Thresh on Boss Jernach. It would go down as an unbelievable story that will be told across the world by different people. Scéal Duchredsa of Iawn, agus La Rofer foi simple and down, Keinsa, and it'll be one of those things that pops up again and again, I'm sure. But it's going to be a massive ask for them because they are up against a great Kerry team. Duchlan on the war of Ion, Keen Fall, mar Baishi the Gimmers in Ifurin, on the Lodger Gary. While Mayo have only won 3 All-Irelands, of course, all 1951 or before, Todd 3 Crave na Heron, Bootsa, Egg, Moyo, Kerry have won 39 and are going for the magical number 40 this weekend. Tá si ag déanúir tan sricu Caracha, or as they say down in Kerry, Dahid Crave a Vukins on Ger Shatna show. They've been to 63 finals. Tá si 3 sricu 3 Cluiche Canish is Shaska. And again, thinking about Paddy O'Shea, for example, who we spoke about a month or two ago on the podcast, Paddy O'Shea, agus bhí méid leabhart faoi cúpla mío hin an bud chréile. Watching his documentary recently, it was interesting. He was talking about, they expect All-Irelands in Kerry. People don't really care about a Munster title or getting to an All-Ireland final. It's, you have to bring the cup home, caithú teach the rash leis an cuppa. And that's almost a bit like Real Madrid here in Spain, because the Real Madrid on so Spawn, that's what's expected. Sin on Rud will gach ag súil leis. And not ag súil leis in the sense of hoping for, but expecting. That's of course what they did last year. Sin on Rud a rinne siad Unnery when they bet Donegal in the final, bet them relatively convincingly. Fui siad soch ní éasca ach fui siad le Barna. Said Sarah, they won with a bit of a gap. I think it was 5 or 6 points was it last year. Cúigno sé Fuinsa, and Donegal kind of got it all wrong in terms of how they marked the Clifford brothers. For she'd been nach gachrad me ceart Tír chunal madra le cod rinneisiad leis an marcáil le Tír Hóracha Clifford and the Clifford brothers. Unbelievable again that we get to see, almost like the Messi and Ronaldo thing for years, we get to see those two play, and especially of course as great a player as Paddy is, Cichovinto, because I thought Paddy will be sitting here in 30-40 years, and when people have the discussion of the greatest Gaelic footballers of all time, nuair atá daoine nuair bhaid daoine ag labhairt faoi na himmerí is fearr is star our sport, in the history of our sport, people will be speaking about David Clifford as one of them, if not the best, by daoine ag labhairt faoi David Clifford, mar cheann den lads agus na himmerí is fearr. And when we're looking back, he'll probably have 6, 7, maybe 8 All-Ireland medals by Shay, no Shacht, no Beidir Ucht, Mun na Héireann. Maybe 8 would be a bit of a stretch, but he'll have, you'd imagine, at least 5. I think he already has 2. This weekend would be his 3rd. Má aon say ceann amháin a deir shot na seo, bheadh sé sin mar iver 3. And he'll be talked about like the Spillans or Gooch, or to name a non-Kerry player, Bernard Brogan up in Dublin, or whatever it might be. These guys who were at the peak of their talent and led their teams to brilliant wins. Lads a bhí mar talent dochredsa aráhan a bheith níomháin ag immert go hintach, not only playing brilliant but leading their team as captains, a bheith ag gceannas ar an éireann, agus a bheith an leadership sin a haspáint mar chaptain na Fianna Cóibh Ma. Their route to the final, their 64th final this weekend, again crazy. Dochred's almost half of all the All-Ireland finals that they've been, tá sé sin beag nach lá to cluichí ceannis na Héireann ará go dtí seo. They played Clare in the opening round in Munster, bhí siad gimmert in an chlór sa chéad bhálta I Gugamún. After that, they played Cork in the final and won fairly comprehensively in the end. Cork came back into it in the second half on the Corky Rash, so Darragh, but wasn't enough in the end. And Driscoll's goal for Cork was their highlight towards the end, but never kicked on from there. And buchfuint a bhí Corkig no on cool for Driscoll on lá sin. But Kerry won that. Kerry won the Munster Championship, as they so often do. Fú siad Crave the Moon. They went on and were a bit unlucky to get Tír Chonaill, to get Donegal in the draw. The Beagnaí Mia Urhu hun Tír Chonaill all sa Tarrant. Of course, with this new format, that's the great thing about it. They lost, which was a tough one to take, and a lot of controversy that day, and a red card and all sorts, and a lot of aggro, a lot of aggro, Idser and thought Éireann, and not many people thought they wouldn't meet again in the championship. But of course, as much as Donegal won that day, Cégur Bhuaí, Tír Chonaill an lá sin, only a few weeks later, they were out of the championship. There's cúpla seachtain eile bhí siad imithe, agus bhí siad fácha as an grave. They then went and played Kildare, who are probably the weakest team in the championship this year. Seansmá Grau Sheedson mar an Éireann is Liga sa Chraibh Imlína. And then they got a nightmare draw again and had to play Armagh Fiorhu Immerts in or the Waka. But they again won that without too many difficulties. Bhuaí siad sin gone more in Jack Ruchty. They went on to play Tyrone, who they best Bhuaí siad in Tyrone. And then a great match against Dublin 2 weeks ago. Claheen to Lochlia, a very controversial game as well. Clutha sore Hunspódach Cóibh Ma, but they got the win in the end and are in yet another final. Tá siad glutha Ganis Ella Arish. And so the two will line up on Sunday, but thought Éireann ag immert on Downach, 3:30 throw-in, I presume, as usual, by Sir Shul, agus by throw-in ag Lahar 3 mar is Gnach. I'd love to be there. I'd love to be in Dublin. I've never been to an Ireland final. You're Marív ag glutha Ganis no ag glutha Ganis na Héireann. I was at a semi-final, but it really didn't feel like that big a deal. If you make glutha Lach Ganis na Héireann between Galway and Dublin in 2018, but it just shows how dominant Dublin were at that time. The sponte on dominance agus Kilful Lodger is a bhí blá clia ag an am. That I remember going up in the train and walking up to Croke Park, scribbling dul an train o Ghaillimh agus an Shinnig Shul go Pork and Croky, and like no one thought we were going to win, and we didn't. Ní Roinia ag swing the ground with ton of bual, and it didn't feel like that big an occasion. Near Wahi sé mar Rodagan no Ochads on the war. And again, there might be people screaming, saying, people from Louth, for example, who've only got to semi-final this year on Chador or Sheedson, glutha Lach Ganis na Héireann for probably 50, 60 years, like Quagan of Shaskablin Anus, if not more. So I was very appreciative and very grateful to get to go. And him on buich around Shansagum Dull, but it kind of felt like, well, it's just a game Dublin have to play before they inevitably play Kerry or whoever it was in the final that year. Riv Avet Egimert tonight, whatever Kerry, no MYO Sichlahi Canish Kaikish in a Yishin. While you compare that to, let's say, the semi-finals last week, my into Comprods Leshin, it's your Shane August na Clihi Lacanish on Sochtans Kotza. It was an array of excitement and there was so much life in the games, even though Mayo, let's say, bet loud easily. Kigervui, Mayo, Socheskas, etc. They felt like massive occasions, both semi-finals, and I'm glad the footballs got back to that way. And even if Kerry probably will win this weekend in the end, Tasam my chance ma Ikri Hunabua all on Jer Shotness show, you still wouldn't say it was a walkover for them or they easily won the championship. There are loads of teams who could have won it at any point this year. Vignart, fearing the around on crave all, no ein cleha a vuchens Erin Law one who could have won championship or won any specific game against any other team on any given day. And it's been an unbelievable championship. Crave the Credsa of Ian could see show the amount of games that went extra time and 1 or 2 points in it, or the Lowther Ma game, for example, made Clehy a Hui Whig extra time arms fresh no Lowther Ma when they Lou August were the Waka Gimmert August on 2 points against Zera, but it went in as a goal like Suches Jach, Marcool and all the rest of it. And we were very lucky to have this sport Thon Thorin on Sports of Agin. And with the new format and the new rules and everything else, the really new is Skakradella and Tashintuk. My main memories, I think, of All Ireland's finals, All Ireland wins. Again, in the pre-Chivney Atamsa Madgerle on Crave, agus Crave na Heron, agus na Clihi Canish. I've never seen Galway win. They did win it in my lifetime in 2001. Vui she they in my hail hain at Gavila is a hain, but of course I was born 2000. Trugum a hain Savleen Gavila, so I was too young to remember that. I think the first one, this might make people feel very old. I'm chance my dinig mohu on a shan, but the first one I can remember was when I was 8 and Tyrone winning in 2008. Tyrone ag fallen bua ag Gavila is a hooked. I have very clear memory of Cluxton and the winning kick in 2011. Cluxton agus on points a shin a vui and chleha the vloglia ag Gavil's Hainjack. And Ian's really grown up being used to Dublin being a good team because they were not that good during the 2000s. Near she'd rawa irri na nashi's ri na blinta Gavila. But of course, in hindsight, that's kind of, well, for the few years after that, they weren't great. Like Kupla Blaine in Iishin, Niroshi, Rowa. But that kind of started a decade of dominance for Dublin. Hussy, Shishin, no Hershishin, Thus, Le Am, no Shal, Anna, Lodger, Lahai, Blochlia, Iri Hanamashin. And that wasn't something that was that enjoyable, I suppose, to watch in the decade. There are great moments and don't want to be hating on Dublin. I'm sure it was great for people from there. Kinsey Girl Sheen, Tucklaidini, Asbloglia. There were other moments, of course. Donaghy, and what do you think of that? Joe Brawley in 2014 or 2015, was it? Govils Caherteg, Govils Cuiteg, agus Kieran Donaghy, agus on Aaron Curie Shin, that a lot of people wrote off, as every team seems to be nowadays in the GAA. Marvin Gachfer in the Lehindy show, so Chuman Lucas Goyle written off before they get a chance. And Mayo and coming so close so many different times. I made Zoran to Mayo on a Hungruk lesh amu all, but just fell short or went to replay, which I wick at Immert or losing by a point or 2 points to Dublin. Wasn't there 1 year where they conceded 2 goals in the first 5 minutes? Their Ligshi the Jack Rahul Zichade Kuig Nomad, and your heart would go out to them. I know it's a cliche, but it's true. I have a lot of family. One side of my family is from Mayo, Tivon, and Machlon Hain is as Mayo, Eid. And so when I was growing up, because I was more of a soccer fan, Marial Ground Nismo Simagum soccer, I could never get behind the idea of, obviously it happened loads during the last decade, that Galway would go out early enough, Gamech, Galiev, Imiha, Agus As, and Crave, Sock, Lua, but then Mayo would go on to the semis and the final. A lot of people in Galway would be supporting them. Vichalandini in Naliev Ektakulo. But I can never get my head around that, because obviously Galway Mayo big rivals and the biggest two teams in Connacht. Tá siad mar an dá éireann is láidir I Connacht. And I kind of thought, well, if you were a Manchester United fan and Man City got to the Champions League final, agus Man City an sin sa chluichí ceannis the Champions League, you wouldn't be cheering them on, surely. Ní bheadh tú gra, oh, yeah, I hope they win for Manchester, for the Northwest, you know, and all the rest of it. Lai Manchán agus lai Ir Hushkar na tír agus Gachradella. So I can never get my head around. But of course, in GA, it's very different. In Ireland, it's very different. In Éireann, thus it's different. And I suppose over the last few years, I've come to understand that a lot more. Tuige mé sin bhád níos mó. And as much as I've nothing against Kerry at all, Ken O'Quilleen rud agam I gcuine Kerry. And a lot of my best friends are from Kerry. Talanta Mulglú Chords Sas Kerrid. However, I will certainly be supporting Mayo this weekend. Gone out by Meg Taku le Mayo and Dara Shatana show. Supposed to keep on going after that kind of period of, you know, Mayo during 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, of course, losing to Tyrone when they did the hard work in the semi-final. Rinnesheed, Sora Obergs and Ober Crua, sa chluiche la Canish on Vleen Shin, and didn't get over the line against Tyrone. Tyrone who pop up and win a random All-Ireland out of nowhere every 7 or 8 years. Find Tyrone on Bua Gach Shacht, no Ucht, Mlena, as, you know, payouts and without kind of any type of notice. Gaeilge Smuoinú no Gaeilge a bheith súil le Tyrone a bhuachans, and they're probably due one again at some point in the next few years. Chance má go maiid siad ag fáil chean eile ag chean cúpla bliain. But after that, I suppose it was a new era for me that I finally saw Galway doing well, because from my earliest memories of 07 or 8, Galway were pretty poor up until around maybe 2015, 2016. Govid's Cuidteg, Govid's Shadeteg, and during that time Dublin were too good first ever achieve anything. Vi bloch Lia Rowa Dúne Hunain Rud a Bhuachans. But last few years have been much better. I mean, to get to see in 2022 Galway play in All-Ireland final was unbelievable. Hunaveg Fechans Gaeilge Vigimerts Glithe Ganesh in Iord Waka Gavils Fehedó. That was something that, again, spent the first 20 years of my life hoping for Mishig Sula Shin Fa Fihablin Rivishin agus an Chéad Fihablin Zemahale, and I watched that in a bar in Berlin. I'll never forget going in and, you know, wide-eyed 22-year-old or whatever I was at the time. Yeah, must have been 22. Fihidó, going into an Irish bar in Berlin and saying, you know, and thinking kind of all Irish bars would be like my local at home. Vic Gach Teachtorvin Éireannach Timplan down Dira Chasúl le ma átsúl agus ma Teachtorvin na átsúl in Aliev. And that I'd go in and I said to them, oh, will you have the game on? It's starting in 5 minutes on my Cluiche Siúl agah tá sé ag tosú gan Cuinomid. And they said to me, what game? You know, it was just a quasi-Irish bar. They had a few Irish things on the wall. There was no one Irish working there, no one Irish drinking there. Níor Éan Éireannach ag Oldborough an sin, Níor Éan Éireannach ag Ol on sin, and then quickly had to get a taxi to the other side of town and find a bar that did have it on, which I did. Can't remember what that place was called, but it was on the outskirts of Berlin. Lovely little Irish bar. Átíntaach Teachtorvina Éireannach Ítach. Obviously, Kerry, who we've been talking about today, Kerry, around with Siglaritz Fu, who Inyo got the win that day. And then I remember being in this very apartment where I am now in Seville on Orson. So in a Wilmate is Seville, ag Fechans ar Gailge and Iord Waka. Gavlin O'Hin 2 years ago, which is really the one I thought we were going to get over the line. Being on Cian, Sweeney, my, you know, Thomas Hun, Aisha of Vukinch. But it'll make it all the sweeter if Galway eventually do win on All Ireland at some point. Mavuin, Gailge, All Ireland's ag points. But as we know from Mayo and the curse of 51, Maratha Sagin, OAO, August on Malacht, O Quaigahane. Sometimes it takes a bit longer than you might expect. Orintha, Togan say, Peace Amanis Fudza na mar a chapter. That's it for this week's episode. Shane on Sacht and Shaw, and for the All Ireland special. I hope you don't mind having so much sport chat. I only do it every so often, and the make Dane on Rud, so no ag Laurch Win Sport a nummercha, Ochbaids or one Gachlin. But again, as I said, as much as it's about sport and the football this weekend, Kiwil se fui agus squill on sport agus gwil on Pelchwailach Tavatach and Jerry Shot in the show. Don't forget, and especially if you're going to the game, that it's something extremely important culturally as well, and we're very, very lucky to have the GA and have All Ireland's final day. Tá tá DÉARDAOIN chun an cumann luchas Gael a bheith agin, agus chun lá chluiche ceannis na hÉireann a bheith agin. Enjoy the match. Buintanamh as an cluiche, dare I say, up Mayo. Mayo Abu, but Kiri Abu Koma Lashin, and hopefully it'll be a good game. Le Kunate Cliha Intach Avai Own. We'll chat a bit, only a small bit, about the result next week. But it's just piece of bug when Thura on Sockton Shahugan. And it's also going to be the last episode before the summer break by Shishin Mar on Tagran Terranach Riv Lane the Sierra on Taris. Hope you can join me then next week. Tá Sulan go might one on Sock the Rashrigam on Sockton Shahugan. Big thank you for listening. Mila buichas asavai Gaeilge. Don't forget to head over and become a Learn Irish Online member today. If you enjoyed podcasts like this, ma went to tatnivus pulchrailty Kasula shall not and jarma vet in the wall. Learn Irish Online, patreon.com/Learn Irish Online. No learnirishonline.com for all our courses, our gorsey, our fad. Goodbye and God bless. Slán agus Bannacht.